Where do you want to be?
Previous mates, right? I'm like, how different is my character from the previous mates? I think very. Mark Cherry.
How are you guys?
We're fantastic, you know.
Welcome to Comic-Con.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going for you guys?
Great.
How's Comic-Con?
Awesome.
So I guess the first thing we want to ask is like, why fairy tales and why now? You know, there was a small period in TV where like that was kind of like what other people were challenging, and now it's kind of died down. But now you're coming with your own thing, and you always have very creative slants of how you handle stuff. So why this angle?
Well, you know, this is originally a format from Argentina, where they were doing an anthology, and then when I watched it, I thought, well, this could be so much more than just a one-off, and so we decided to take 3 fairy tales, intertwine them. And the reason, you asked why now, is I was watching it and thinking, if you had to write these fairy tales today, what would they look like? You know, because I sort of feel like we live in a very sort of interesting time in America. You know, it's like there's Rage America, it's so dark, things seem a little hopeless, and I sort of feel like we live in a time of despair in a lot of ways, and just like we wake up every morning and go, I can't believe that happened today. And this is what happened today, and I kind of wanted a show to reflect that. If you look at Hansel and Gretel, which is Dania's storyline, is they were 2 children that were thrown away by their parents and thrown into the woods because of the time it was famine, and the parents couldn't afford to feed their kids, so they threw them in the woods to fend for themselves. So what would that look like with 2 characters today in the woods of New York City who were thrown away by their circumstance?
You've really done a really great job at modernizing them, but really keeping the morals and what you can take away from the fairy tales still present in today's day. And if you think back at the fairy tales, you know, the original ones, they were pretty dark as well. And I think
they're morality tales.
They're morality.
Brothers
exactly.
Grimm and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, they're very dark, and I think in the world that we're living in today, it's great to not only do that, but then also find hope within that, because there's a lot of things that you can take out of the world that we're living in today. It's not just all bad and that's it, and you're living through it. And there are things that are really great takeaways, and what better way to make sure that you expose that than through fairy tale.
It's just really, you know, like I said, yes, exactly. It's harder to find the hope, but it is there, and that's what we sort of show, particularly in Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel, yeah.
So do you have a favorite story within the lores of the fairy tale world, yourself personally?
Wow, I mean, I've loved so many of them. But Little Red Riding Hood is the one that always comes to mind, because it was one of the first ones that I ever, read growing up. But all of them to me are really interesting in their own way. I have to say, Hansel and Gretel is one that I learned about much later on, but I really can associate with, even throughout my life, with the things that they've gone through and the struggles, the personal struggles that the character actually goes through on the show, with being abandoned by their parents, and what that really does to a child, and what you really turn into as an adult, and what does that look like?
In terms of how that was adapted for the show itself, do you have like a favorite character or favorite arc that the show follows?
Wow. It's really hard because it's 3 fairy tales and they intertwine, but a lot of the times we're all living in our own world.
They don't show up to work together.
We show up to work together. So the really exciting thing about working on a show like this for someone like me is that I get to watch the episodes and really watch, a show that I haven't seen filmed the whole time, except for like my storyline. So I think it's going to be really exciting for people in general, because they're going to be able to have their favorites and to say, okay, this one is my favorite and I relate to that character.
And that's why we chose these 3, because we felt like they were vastly different in their morality tale, and they would complement each other, and they didn't overlap, because a lot of times the fairy tales have the same moral.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be careful to sort of not overlap, and so that we have 3 distinct stories, and that's what works so well with this one. Originally we were going to do another one, but we felt like, that kind of steps on the one we're already doing, and so we'll save that to next year.
You know what? Also, a lot of TV shows, and this is a compliment to the way you write the show, it's a lot of TV shows that deal with different storylines really feel like the need to have to make these characters work together all the time and intertwine them like right away in a way that doesn't feel natural. And this show isn't like that at all. I think every story is complementing each other without the need to overexpose a character in the other storyline just to make sure that they matter.
And they're slowly connected.
They're slowly connected.
By the end,
exactly.
they all connect.
Yeah.
I love what you said about the morality. That's what I was kind of wondering. So, were there any, when you were doing your research and you were adapting it, were there any morals or like conclusions to the fairy tale that you purposely chose because you disagreed?
Well, that's what we do a
Without
lot.
spoiling.
Well, without spoiling it, I'll tell you, we actually, the whole point of it is to subvert it.
Yeah.
So that when we do, we all know how the Three Little Pigs ends, or do we? It's like, who's the wolf, who's the pigs, who's good, who's bad, who's in between. And that's sort of what that storyline, that's the road it goes
What
down.
is good and what is bad, and coming from a non-judgmental perspective, really watching it and seeing, okay, well, maybe their actions are bad, but they're not a bad person.
Their intent is.
Yeah, the intent, and life is riddled with bad decisions and bad choices. And how do you crawl out of them?
I like to say that some people are villains by perspective, because it depends on your viewpoint in which you see, do you side with them or you're against them? So I like stories like that where it's really the viewer's choice if they're with them. Kind of like Black Panther and Killmonger. Some people like Killmonger, some people like Black Panther. They get the points of view. So I like
That's the character that's going to live. That's going to live on because you walked away going, I understand him, and I understand why he did what he did and who he was. And that's why he's the favorite.
Yes.
Because a good villain's a good villain. We play with that with like Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, we make a lot of choices that are not the best, and they wouldn't be described as something like, okay, that's a good person that's doing that. But
they don't make heroic choices. They make some very
but you're doing rooting for them to actually get away with some of the stuff that they're trying to get away with throughout the story.
And the same with the Three Little Pigs. And what starts off as villains, your loyalties change and your loyalties turn. And so who's the good guy in that story? You have to watch the show and you'll side with one and not with the other. And they're all, basically it's all a bunch of flawed, damaged characters that hopefully you'll care about, so you'll be invested in their bad choices and hope that they can find the right way or just get away with it.
Yeah, it's very human.
So I want to ask
Just
you.
one more question, guys. I'm gonna.
Well, no, ask
I
your
was
question.
going to ask if there was a specific reason why you guys chose to set it in New York City of all the different cities.
Welcome to the jungle. New York City, as a backdrop, what a great character.
And I personally love New York City, and I love all the texture of New York City, and I just like the feel and look of it. And there may come a world where the second season we take it to another city, because New York is such a character in the show, and they all sort of are in different areas of New York and in different worlds within New York. And my goal would be every year to take it to a different city and turn that into a new woods.
That's great.
Because it's the woods of life, basically.
Yeah, finding out things with you guys.
But that will depend on tax incentives.
So character in the past, X-Men movie. But I was curious, if you could play a superhero from this moment, who would you want to be? I have a suggestion.
Wow.
Who would
You have a suggestion?
Yes.
Please give me the suggestion, because I don't.
Jessica Cruz's Green Lantern.
I would love
Hispanic
that.
Green Lantern. She's a very
that would-
popular
yeah.
new Green Lantern.
That is very cool. I would love to play that. I've always wanted to make
can do it.
my own character. I feel like there's not too many characters based on Marvel characters that really have an alien background, and I feel like that would be really cool and interesting to make that.
She can do it. She does all her own stunts.
Yes.
Yeah. I know. I have Bruce
Are you
ribs
so
as
br-
we speak.
Yeah,
As
really?
we speak,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
I know it's getting better. It's getting better, but it's really. There's nothing like doing it yourself, because they can really see you.
And she's getting better just for next week when I put you in another one.
I'm ready.
Oh, she has been a trooper. She has kicked ass this whole season.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Davina is here.
I know.
I know.